This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers.
You're always this stupid. It is you take lessons.
Just calm down.
Oh, fuck you!
You can't handle the truth.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
In other words, be nice, asshole.
All right, you ready to talk
Yep.
about this? Finally, we're at a conclusion. Kind of, but not really, but we will get there. So welcome to an emergency Q as in cucumber episode. The podcast where we point and laugh at stupid companies, customers, and coworkers alike. I'm Lara Mack.
And I'm Tanya Edwards.
Okay, so we're recording remotely because the Elizabeth Holmes verdict came in. And to say that the outcome is a mixed bag is like the understatement of the century. It literally is like a buffet of results. All right. Like they golden corralled the shit out of this. I don't know. And I'm going to say, like, I do want to speak directly to one of our YouTube followers, Fungi. You seem to be the one that has like this not positive view of Elizabeth Holmes. I'm absolutely not saying that. Or more optimistic view of the outcome of what it would be. And now that the outcome is here, I'm not satisfied really at all, the more I've thought about it. But I'm hoping, Fungi, can you just tell me how I should frame this in my head? Be my therapist. Tell me how I should frame this in my mind. Because, yeah. So basically, here was the way it all shook out. Okay. When the trial started, she had 11 charges. And one we talked about in a previous episode. I'm going to link the playlist down in the description of all of our Elizabeth Holmes coverage. But one of our recent episodes, we talked about how the prosecution had fucked up on a technicality on one of the charges. So it was dropped. So we have one charge that was dismissed. We had 3 charges that they were hopelessly deadlocked on, and we'll get to that a little bit more here. And then we had, I believe, 3 that were not guilty, and then 4 that were guilty. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's 11.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can count here. So, I mean, literally just a mixed bag across the board. So let's get into the details of the charges and the results. So count 1 of conspiring to commit wire fraud against investors in Theranos between 2010 and 2015. So this is the conspiracy. Like, were you actively planning? It wasn't like a flying by the seat of your pants. It was an active plan to defraud. That charge was guilty. I'm just going to run through these as far as the guilty, not guilty, and then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about why I'm so depressed. And maybe I'll feel differently when sentencing happens. Maybe. We'll see, but okay. Count 2 of conspiring to commit wire fraud against patients who paid for Theranos blood testing services between 2013 and 2016. Not guilty. Count 3 of wire fraud in connection with a wire transfer of $99,990 on or about December 30th, 2013. No verdict. That's when they were deadlocked on. Oh. Count 4 of wire fraud for about $5.3 million-ish and December 31st, 2013, also deadlocked. Count 5 of wire fraud was about $4.8 million on December 13th, 2013, again, deadlocked. Count 6 of wire fraud in connection with a wire transfer of $38 million, roughly, on or about February 6th, 2014, guilty. Count 7 of wire fraud in connection with a wire transfer of $99 million, almost $100 million. A couple thousand short of $100 million.
Right.
Guilty. Count 8 of wire fraud in connection with a wire transfer of $5.9 million. That was guilty. Count 9 was dropped, the one we discussed.
Right.
Count 10 of wire fraud in connection with a patient's laboratory blood test results on or about May 11, 2015, not guilty. Count 11 of wire fraud in connection with a patient's laboratory blood test results May 16, 2015, not guilty. Count 12 of wire fraud in connection, I believe that one was guilty. My little screenshots here cut off. Okay. So I just have to say, and Emily D. Baker, I'm going to link the video that I watched of her today. She did a full breakdown, and it was really interesting, as always, to hear Emily's takes. And it was kind of nice to hear how my thinking kind of matched hers in some ways. When I read the details as to which ones were guilty and which ones were not guilty, I was pissed. And the reason why, I think Emily and I were on the same page. Emily and I, like, I know this woman. Good Lord. I adore her. The 3 counts of not the conspiracy to commit fraud. The 3 counts of actually committing the wire fraud that she was found guilty on.
Uh-huh.
One of them, which I believe was the 99 million, the almost 100 million,
Uh-huh.
was the DeVos family. That was the charge from them.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. On one hand, I'm like, fuck them. But on the other hand, I'm like, okay, yeah, she did shoot you. And I know this is why people say, like, oh, class prejudice, not class prejudice. I don't like them.
I don't like stupid
Okay.
people.
I don't like stupid people with lots of money that you got from being involved in a pyramid scheme. Okay. It's Amway money. Okay. You scammed people out of it, and then you got scammed out of it. The other 2 guilty verdicts for the investors were also single investors, right?
Yep.
What annoys the living fuck out of me is the charges related to defrauding specific patients. She was found not guilty on. One lady thought she had AIDS. Those people, and it's not to say a crime committed against somebody is a crime, whether it's the DeVosses, whether it's, Joe Blow down the street, I don't care. Okay, it's a crime. But what annoys me is, had it not been, I truly believe, and this is just my God's honest opinion, and this is where I think Emily and I are on the same page. I'm really curious to see if any of the jurors speak out to see if her and I are, our thought process is right. Because if you remember, the jury asked really kind of one question about one piece of evidence that they wanted to review again. And the one thing they wanted to review was that investor call that an investor surreptitiously recorded, and she didn't know it, where she was talking about, oh yeah, we've got contracts with the military and blah, 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 blah. And these 3 charges seem to be related to, in one way or another, to that call.
Right.
That's all that mattered, was that phone call. Otherwise, all this evidence, and that's the only thing that got her, kind of ticks me off. Like, even we didn't know about all that stuff. Now, I'm sure part of this, the reason why, is because said it before, we'll say it again. You and I can't get past this because they lost the database again. I guess there really wasn't anything as tangible, I guess. Am I making sense with my thought process as to why I'm annoyed?
Yeah, because to us, we know what it is. We know what it is. You didn't lose shit. You didn't lose shit.
The way that Emily framed this was, and I get this. I do understand it, but I think it speaks again to our rules and our laws and how they are designed to protect the big fish and fuck over everybody else. Okay. Emily's thought process to this, which this would make sense if the jurors come out and say, this is why. Okay. On that investor call, there clearly was, and you could hear it, there clearly was an intent to deceive these people, to lie, flat out lie. What there isn't, and this is what pisses me off, because I'm like, wait just a minute. What about us? the normal people. There is not one piece of evidence that says Elizabeth Holmes purposefully intended to go out and defraud these individual patients. They don't have anything saying, "Oh, well, I saw Elizabeth Holmes said I should get this, so I did." But at the same time, I'm like, why is that needed? She's the head of this company that is committing a massive fraud, that you can see what the outcome will be, that these people, that normal people will be completely fucked, if not killed, because of this. But because we don't have Elizabeth Holmes saying specifically to Mary Smith, who has breast cancer, "Hey, Mary, go down to your Walgreens and get this," because we don't have something that granular, Mary Smith doesn't fucking count.
Well, no.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, and it kind of pisses me off because the shit that involved the money part of it is what she
What
was
they nailed her
guilty
on.
right?
Yeah.
But the stuff that actually impacted people who have no money, it's classist. The people who have no money are the ones who really got fucked over in this entire
They don't count.
charade.
They don't count
Charade.
as
No,
victims.
apparently not.
And that when I did not realize when I was like reading through the counts that all the ones she was found not guilty on were all the ones that were about specific patients. And to me, I really want to hear, I don't necessarily want to blame the jurors. I really want to hear what their logic was behind that, because the other thing, and once again, you got to remember this, we talked about this a little bit in our last episode about the specific jury instructions. Some of this might have come down to the jury instructions, to where they have to look at this very specific window of information and what they can consider and what they can't, what the standards of proof. I don't necessarily want to blame the jurors, but I do want to blame the law, that if that is what you need to convict a person like this of doing all the shit that she did, if you need something like that, then the law needs to change, because that is insane. And here's where I didn't realize how ultimately smart she really was. Now, whether she was intentionally smart or accidentally smart, I think is up for debate. Okay. Where she was smart in one way or another was there was never something that said, "Oh, just give them any result or
Right.
just make up a result." Now, did she create a system that would manufacture fake results just to give them something? I would say yes, my opinion. So there wasn't really anything to go back to her saying, "Oh, well, you purposefully misled these people with fake results." It was her,
But she did.
but she got the fake results by this magical process that she created of these, altered Siemens Advia machines and all this shit. She didn't just pull a number out of thin air. And because she didn't do that, somehow that protected her.
I don't see how.
So let's do this. So just so you know, y'all, we already did our intro. We already did our little opening yesterday, but we had a bit of a technical difficulty. Tanya's on her brother's computer. He hasn't updated it for years. So halfway through us recording, it just shut down. So
Right.
I'm going to combine these two recordings because I did get some additional information today from some stuff we were discussing yesterday that I thought was interesting, and it was exactly what I thought it was, which pisses me off. Okay, so here we go. What we were discussing when your computer shut down, was what ticked me off was that she was convicted of the fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud and the fraud against the investors.
Right.
Some of the investors, not all. And thank God, and honestly, thank God for that recording that one investor made, because clearly all of the shit that the prosecution brought didn't fucking matter. It was that recording. It really was. And I'm telling you, Tanya knows this. That last year at our old job that sucked ass, there's a reason. There is a reason I have thousands of hours of recording. I walked around with my phone on voice record in my bra all day, every day, because I didn't trust those people. And thank God, and I have it on tape. So if they ever want to come at me and be like, we didn't do that, bullshit. I have it on tape.
Right.
I have it on tape.
Speaking from a personal point of view, you know damn good and well that shit saves you sometimes.
Yes, it does. And we won't go into the
No,
details
but
on
I'm
that.
just saying though, like,
But yeah, there was an incident, just so y'all know some background. There was an incident in Tanya's life where a recording literally saved Tanya and Sophia's lives.
Yep.
A recording did it. I don't care. It did. Anyway, so what annoyed me about the verdict was she was convicted on the fraud and the conspiracy to commit fraud for the investors, but she was found not guilty on the charges of the fraud against the patients
Right, which
who
I thought was
paid for the
bullshit.
tests, which I thought was bullshit. And honestly, it was exactly what Emily D. Baker thought it was, and it was exactly what I thought it was. What was it? I saw some interviews with some jurors, and I'm like, why can't I need to just go to college and be a lawyer, because I swear to God, this was a simple way to explain this. And if they didn't explain this correctly, maybe they did, and maybe the jurors just didn't care. I don't know. But this juror, in explaining why they didn't find her guilty on those charges, it's exactly what we thought it was. They didn't feel that she, quote unquote, intended to harm them, because she's so far removed. She's the CEO.
But it's her technology. She takes credit for that. It's her technology.
Thank you. And here's where I'm like, this was a simple way to frame this. And if the prosecution didn't, this was the moment that sealed it for me. And we talked about this in our deep dive. And I'm like, how did y'all not bring this up? Okay. In these charges specifically, in that interview that she did at some sort of conference after the Wall Street Journal articles came out, where they revealed that the company had hacked those Siemens machines, had altered them, and diluted shit twice, the finger stick tests twice, to get enough volume of a sample to run it through those machines, right? In that interview, when they asked her on stage live about that, what did she say? I can't believe they said we do that. I mean, you wouldn't get accurate results doing that, when that was exactly what you did, and you knew you
it.
were doing it.
You knew it.
I'm sorry. This is what pisses me off. Yes, do the investors deserve some justice? Absolutely. Were they
Absolutely.
defrauded? Absolutely. Was it the DeVos family? I don't care if it was the DeVos family. I don't like them, but they didn't deserve that. Yeah, they're pieces of shit, but I'm sorry, nobody deserves that.
No.
Okay? Why is it okay to defraud consumers because you're the head of the snake and they're at the tail? Why? No, it's not okay to me. And I know I'm like super fired up about this, but it really pisses me off. Where is the level of accountability for these leaders of these organizations that have so much impact on our lives? And because they get to sit up in their fucking penthouse, they're not, well, and he flat out said, we just didn't feel like she intended. What do you think she intended to fucking do?
I feel like I feel like it's a form, and I'm sure that as a quote unquote software person or whatever, right, building this little fucking magic box, I feel like that there's some sort of negligence or malpractice there because it's a medical thing. And I don't know. I feel like, and that far outweighs any financial, especially for the people involved. Like, this is a drop in the bucket for them. They can write this shit off, right? But to
Yeah.
somebody like us,
Mhm.
normal 9 to 5, working hard, all that shit, you get a diagnosis, right or wrong, it affects you. It affects you. Could you? So I know I've said before, right? Like when I first found out I had cancer, I kept saying, I told David, I said, I feel like they're gonna, I feel like they're
They're gonna call and
call
say
me
it
and
was
tell me
wrong.
that, oops, my bad. It was, and I felt,
And you were like 3 rounds into chemo, and David was like, "Bitch,
but
they
it's not
should have told
happening.
you."
It's not gonna happen. You fucking can't.
Weeks ago.
Right, right. But imagine feeling that way and being fucking
Yeah.
right. And
Mhm.
being right. Like,
Make you feel crazy.
right, right. Because some things that you're told, not having a viable pregnancy or having cancer or having any sort of disease that, HIV, anything that you're never gonna get over
How do you become whole after that?
after that, because now you're thinking there is always a chance. That's
Mhm.
always in the back of your mind, as if you were, because recurrence is something that if you've had cancer sticks with you all the time. Any
Fuck
little
yeah.
cough, any little bump, any little bruise, anything, you constantly think, oh my God, is this a recurrence? So to walk around and either feel like you've got this issue, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Or to walk around and think, oh, it's nothing. It was a negative last time. Maybe it's just all in my head. And that's why people go undetected with things like cancer and HIV and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because of bullshit. This
Absolutely.
this is a cause. Because of faulty testing. This was malpractice, negligence, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. And she needs to be held accountable for that. And if I was on the jury, I would have made that same argument.
And how do you I 1,000% agree with you. But how do you really look at those people who, like you said, the investors, they're gonna be able to write that off as a loss on their
You're less
taxes
than.
and call
You
it a
are less
day.
than. That's what they just told those people.
Right. Oh, but she didn't intend, and this is where I'm like, we got to change the law. She didn't intend. First of all, I don't believe that for a fucking second when you look at that goddamn interview. And yes, I know I'm cursing. By the way, there was a person who said that we curse too much. And thank you to Alexander the Great. Tanya's flipping off the camera right now. Thank you so much to Alexander the Great who defended us without us having to do anything. I didn't even see his comment until she was like, studies have shown people who curse a lot are actually more intelligent. And I was like, thank you, Alexandra.
Right?
Like
Because
she said it, so I didn't have
I'm pretty
to.
fucking smart.
Thank you. But it irks me because this whole she didn't in the law says that she had to intend. First of all, you put that interview where she said, I can't believe they said we do that, when she knew, and the emails show that she knew. She said in that interview, it wouldn't work if you did it that way. And
Right.
email showed she knew they were doing it that way. So I'm sorry that fuck you. But how do you look at these people and say, well, she didn't intend to traumatize you for life and possibly impact your long term health care because you're now scared of an incorrect result, of even going to a doctor, because now you have been thoroughly traumatized. It I can appreciate what the jury was like, where their thought process was, and maybe there was something in the instructions that I missed, but I'm sorry. That the more I thought about it, the more that pissed me off. That these patients were basically told, "Too bad, so sad. Fuck off. She didn't mean to."
So I wonder if they
Ugh,
can start like a civil suit against her.
I think they have. I'm pretty sure they have. I need to look if anybody knows about the civil suits, because I know there were a ton of lawsuits filed.
Right.
I think some were settled early, but I don't know. Now you got your little rich heir sugar daddy, sugar baby boyfriend.
Right.
Okay. Why don't you have grandpa who was in the courtroom cut a check? Go for it. Because he clearly had no problem paying for your legal defense because her original lawyers deuced out really quick because they were like, she can't pay us. And then all of a sudden she's got this legal fucking dream team as soon as she hooks up with, baby boy air over here
Right.
and got knocked up. Oh, and okay, so let's talk about that. Sentencing. Basically, she's looking at 20 years per charge. There is technically she could face 80. Is she gonna? No. Is she gonna get 20? No.
I think she's gonna
She
get between
honestly
6 and 10, and she'll get out
Yep.
in like
Yep.
3 because it's a white
Yeah.
collar crime. It's a white collar
Right.
crime. She's white, she's affluent, and
Mhm.
she knows how to work a system somehow.
Here's what's interesting though. There was an interview with John Carreyrou where they asked about this,
Mhm.
and he said flat out, she's probably the judge can't there's 2 sides to this coin. The judge can take into account that she is a new mother. Y'all don't see me or Tanya. Tanya's flipping off the camera. I'm rolling my eyes. Okay. But John Carreyrou points out everybody who knew this woman was like she did that for sympathy. Everybody who knew this woman. But John Carreyrou said, and I thought this was interesting, the prosecution can actually argue this was a sympathy play. However, that's a very delicate line to, and we said it when we talked about her pregnancy. I believe I said it where I was like, it feels, it makes you, and John Carreyrou said it. It makes you feel like a shitty person, even saying out loud that a woman would bring a child into this world just to try to keep her ass out of prison. It feels like a shitty thing to say to my soul. But at the same time, if it looks like a duck,
I feel like
it's a duck.
I'm just picturing this bitch in bed with a calendar and an ovulation kit. Trying to
Oh god.
having sex and then laying in the bed with her legs up in the air for 20 minutes,
Oh
talking
my
about you got to go again in
god.
15 minutes, so get ready. I got court sued. That's
The fact that she magically happened, this has been going on. This started in 2015. She got charged, all this crap, all this happened. And it has been working its way through the court, has literally taken years. Okay. And you just happen to get pregnant to where your due date is the month of your trial. Girl, you've got a magic uterus. I think you said it once. Your uterus is award winning.
I'm trying
Just
to
timing alone.
right. God damn, your ovulation is on point.
So yeah, the prosecution can argue like she just had this baby for sympathy. Point blank and period. And I honestly with this judge, I don't really know. I can't really say one way or the other. I think it's probably gonna be like 5 to 10 max, if that. Honestly, I just I don't know. For me, I feel like it's a roll of the dice if the judge has sympathy for her because the jurors clearly had like even listening to these jurors talk, the only they I really believe they would have felt completely comfortable. Oh, this is what was interesting. Oh, I wrote this down. Hold on.
There are just certain cards you don't play, though. You don't play the mommy card to benefit.
No. No. Here's what's interesting. They felt sympathy for her, but they did not believe her. Get this shit.
I wouldn't believe this bitch if her tongue came notarized.
They had not sticky notes like post-it notes. They had sticky pads of paper.
Right.
And they to keep it all straight, they created like a war room,
Mhm.
right? And they wrote everything out as far as like timeline and all kinds of shit on these sticky pads of paper, and then they wallpapered the entire like jury room wall,
Mhm.
right? And they had a system. This is what I think is fascinating. They had a system for who they believed and who they didn't. They ranked. Get this shit. This is wild to me. I've never heard of a jury doing this. Maybe I, I'm fascinated. They ranked each witness on a 1 to a 4-star scale as to whether or not they believed them. James Mattis was 4 stars. They were like, it's James Mattis. Of course you're going to believe James Matt, like 4 stars. But they said that their lowest star rating was a 2-star rating, and that was what they gave Elizabeth Holmes.
I can
Was
see
2
that.
stars. I'm still shocked they didn't give her 1.
I mean, I've
But
only had jury duty once in my life, right? Well, I've only been picked once. I've had it like a fucking million times for some reason. I
right,
just had it a few months ago. But I've
right.
only been picked once, and the one jury I was on was like an open and shut. Dude broke into the girls. Oh, the girl broke into the dude's house, was like terrorizing him and tearing his shit up, and then she tried to choke him with a phone cord. This is how long ago it's been since I had jury duty.
That there was a phone
There was
cord
a
at
fucking
all.
phone cord. She tried to choke his ass out with a phone cord.
Was it avocado green? How
It
old
was
was
beige,
it?
bitch. I'm not 80.
I'm going to hell for that. I'm sorry.
Was it avocado green?
You can smack me. Now she's flipping me off. You can, you can, you can smack me next time you see me for that one.
You and
Sorry.
Jessica and your little witty fucking comments about how old I am.
Okay, so I thought that was interesting with the ranking system. The last thing that we'll say, and I'm sure there'll be more on this as more jurors get interviewed and stuff like that. We well, I guess this isn't the last thing I'm going to say because we got to talk about what comes next. I did see an interview with Tyler Schultz
Mm-hmm.
this morning, the whistleblower whose grandfather was George Schultz. And he told a really nice story that just really warmed my heart. Now, the two of them made up, they made amends before George passed. Thank God, because that would have just added a whole other level of heartbreak to this whole story. But even though they made up, George never really apologized or gave a reason as to why he believed Elizabeth over his own grandson. But apparently, he told him a story after they had made up that I think sheds more light on why it was so difficult to believe that she was the two-faced con artist that she is. And the story was that George, I believe, I'll post the link to the story down below, but George had invited her to speak, I believe, at some sort of veterans conference or something along those lines. And she got up in front of all of these service members and with tears, y'all should see Tanya's face right now. Oh my God. She can see what's coming. But with tears in her eyes, talked about how there was no greater purpose in her life than creating something that could save service members' lives. And to put on that performance to men and women who have sacrificed so much and to basically look them dead in the face and lie with tears in her eyes, he just couldn't believe that anybody would do that. And quite frankly, that's the first real story that I've heard about George's belief in her that made it make at least a little bit of sense for me. Because who would? Who would believe that anybody would lie to the most treasured people or who should be the most treasured people in our society? You just don't want to believe it. Who would?
But when you're dealing with someone like this, who has obvious, and I'm no doctor, I'm just going by what I've seen and what I know. But
Right.
when you're dealing with someone with these sort of characteristics and that exhibit like a lot of narcissistic behaviors, they
Right.
can turn it on and off at the drop of a dime. They can make
But I don't think he.
you believe
Yeah.
shit. And
Oh yeah.
that's what's really sad, that somebody who is in that sort of a position was so taken in by
Mm-hmm.
someone who was so
Nefarious
that's the word I
intentions.
wanted, nefarious.
There you go.
Someone who has
Yeah.
such nefarious intentions.
That's wrapped up in a God complex. That's what drives me crazy is
Right,
because the God complex of I'm here to save the world. Like that's really it's not just
right.
she's not like, she's not like Bernie Madoff who just wanted a shit ton of money. She's not Jeff Skilling who just wanted a shit ton of money. She wanted to be perceived as some sort of god-like figure. When she says, "Oh, it wasn't about the money," a part of me is like, "Yeah, it really wasn't. It was because you wanted to be seen as a savior."
It's about the money, but mostly it's about the power.
Oh
It's
yeah.
about the power. Narcissists want power.
They like being able to yank James Mattis's chain
Right.
whenever they
They
fucking
want
want.
power. They get off on that
Mhm.
shit.
Yeah.
And that's something that she had. I feel like that's something that she felt like she had, like she was holding these people's lives in the palm of their hand with her magic machine and their few drops of blood. Like I feel like that's where she was,
Yeah.
I
I don't disagree with you at all.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So, okay. So going forward, there are the 3 charges that they were hung up on. I guess there's going to be a hearing next week to discuss sentencing. There's really a couple of options. One, the prosecution can just drop it. Two, they can try to get her to just plead guilty to it. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
Or 3, they can retry her. There is a theory that they're gonna wait to see what happens with Sonny Balwani, because remember, we still have another trial to go. Tanya's face is like,
This guy. I just
he's gonna be convicted on everything because
oh,
he's not sympathetic.
for
He's
one,
going down for
no, he doesn't.
it.
He's not. Yeah, he just doesn't have that. Oh, I'm just a poor little woman. He's the mean brown guy.
And she knew what to pass off to him that he would just do
Yeah.
without even thinking, because he's an idiot.
Right.
Okay, we know from reading the book and everything else, he was nothing but a pit bull for her.
So that does not help one fucking bit.
No.
He's the mean brown guy, and that's what it's gonna come down to.
He's the mean brown guy. He was the pit bull that she set up, quite
Oh, and he
frankly.
was just manipulating her and overpowering her and
Mhm.
ruling
Yeah.
her entire life. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they're gonna
There's
fucking
more evidence against him because he was willing to be the bad guy for her, not realizing that this would come back in any way because he
right,
conflated. And this is what a lot of people are like, oh, well, all these men from Silicon Valley, they're not getting charged. It's not about
right,
whether she's a man or a woman. It's about the fact that she went, it's a medical product versus an app that gives you puppy dog ears.
right,
Those are two very different things. And I'm sorry, when you get into the realm of medical products, yeah, her ass needed to be friggin' charged. Okay.
right.
So I'm sorry. But he was too stupid to understand that. If his defense comes out and says he was too stupid, that defense I would buy. I would buy it more than anything she spun.
So I feel like she's trying to put it like, oh, he manipulated me. When honestly, she was manipulating him
Of
a lot of the
course.
time to take the fall for a lot of this because
A
again,
1000%.
he's a man and he's this oh my gosh, this man is just manipulating me, and he's, it's all of that. It's all of that to me.
I talked to you about the fact that they were like they remind me of 2 leaders from our old job that we used to work at together. One of them was the super nice kind of like face of the business and blah 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 blah. And then she had her little fucking pit bull that would go out and be the bad guy and do everything that her master ordered, right? Every time our sweet little, head of the company would yank on her little leash. Oh,
The
she would just
cheerleader,
Oh, yeah.
super engaged with the people, and oh
Mhm.
goodness, and chit chatting and all that bullshit, and come to find out it was both of y'all doing the shit, and that's what they
Mhm.
were.
Both of them. They were Cuntamort 1 and Cuntamort
Yeah,
2, okay?
yeah.
They just were. Anyway, so that is our Elizabeth Holmes verdict wrap. We're gonna talk about, sentencing, we're gonna talk about appeals. There are still these 3 charges that we're gonna follow, and then the Sonny Balwani trial, which I believe is supposed to happen in March, I believe.
And
So,
when does she get
they haven't
sentenced? They haven't said
they
yet,
haven't
right?
set sentencing. Yeah, I believe there's a hearing next week.
I feel like her entire trial, the guilty verdicts will have a role in his trial, but then I feel like if she gets sentenced before he goes to trial, which who knows, but I feel like
Uh-huh.
that's going to play a big role in his
Yeah,
trial as well, because then it
yeah.
leads to, well, you can't hold him completely liable for all of this because look what they've already found Miss Holmes guilty of, and then it's
Mhm.
gonna be you're charging 2 people. You're gonna basically try and charge 2 people for the price of 1. Is that what you're doing? I feel like that's something that his defense will try to bring up and use in his defense.
I don't know how that works with conspiracy though, because one of the charges she was convicted on was conspiring to commit fraud. I don't know how can you conspire with yourself?
I mean,
I mean,
you can do a lot of things with yourself, but I don't know if conspiring is one of them.
my alternate personality's name is Savannah Bell, so me and Savannah Bell got together and worked out a caper.
It
I
was
don't
me,
know.
Dolores Whipple, and Anastasia Beaverhausen got
There you
together and
go.
did some shit.
There you go. Knocked over a bank.
Those are all my alter egos.
Well, Tanya's pouring out the rest of that bottle, and good for her. I need to go drink. To those of you who have been on this Elizabeth Holmes journey with us this whole time, to Old G, Alexander the Great, Karen, hashtag not all Karens, Kevin, I mean, the list just Don K, love you. Like, oh my God, Don left a great comment on our Josh Duggar, or not our Josh Duggar. It was our Tiger King episode. She got to that line about the ferret forest
Oh,
and it killed her. She just was like, okay, I have to pause this and go watch it because that line broke me. So love you, Kate. To those of you who've been on this journey with us this whole time, Tanya's drinking. I'm going to go upstairs and have dinner, and I'm going to pour myself a drink. Wherever you are, if you have managed to follow this story with us, have a drink.
have two.
Celebrate what little, there you go. Have to celebrate what victory we got. She was convicted on something. It wasn't what I wanted, but you know what? We got her on something.
It's better than
I
nothing.
honestly thought I honestly thought it was going to be
I
nothing.
mean,
So,
we've said that. Like, I really felt
for
like,
months.
her bullshit was gonna cross the line and somebody was gonna fall for it. The jury was either gonna be hung and they were gonna have a mistrial, or she was just gonna get off because she's just a boring
And
lady.
honestly, we technically were right. The jury was hung on 3
Yeah.
charges. They let her go on 4, I believe, or 3, I can't remember. One was so I mean, we were kind of right on some of them.
But a guilty verdict is a guilty verdict, and she's still a felon.
There
You
you go.
know?
So, we will sign off. We will say cheers. I've got my
Give
water.
your water.
Tanya's gonna cheers.
Oh, I have my
Tanya, cheers.
ching
Cheers.
ching.
Mhm. So, until next time, I'm Lar Mac.
And I'm Tanya Edwards.
Love your faces.
Smooches.
Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcasting platform. and follow us on our Facebook page by searching Q as in Cucumber. Don't forget to check out our other show, hosted by me and Jessica James, called The Parent Memoirs. And we want to hear from you. Share your stories by emailing us at qasincucumber@yahoo.com, and you might just hear your stories on a future episode. Love your faces!
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.